It's been a long wait, hasn't it? More than 2 months have gone by since the last video where we explored and broke down the newest episodes of Angel Engine. And the reason for this break is actually pretty simple. Even though several episodes have come out since then, I was waiting for something more. A turning point. That moment that closes one chapter and opens the door to something entirely new. A shift that makes you excited to see what comes next. And now, that moment has finally arrived. We've reached the point of no return. The biggest climax this series has delivered so far. So get ready. This is the longest Angel Engine video I've ever made. If you've never seen this analog horror series before, I highly recommend checking out the video that's popping up on screen right now. It's a full compilation of every breakdown I've done on this series so far. You'll also find it linked in the description. And just a heads up, this video won't take into account the Angel Engine manga, since many of the ideas in it may have been scrapped or reworked in the final version of the series. That said, I want to take a moment to thank everyone who responded to the pinned comment in the last video and for the incredible support you always give me. Remember, if you'd like to be featured in the next video, make sure to reply to the pinned comment where you'll find this question. What's been your favorite moment in Angel Engine so far? Without further ado, don't forget to leave your precious like and subscribe to help the channel grow and reach more people. Every like is one more coin to escape poverty. If you're unsure what to comment, just type meow in the comments section and I'll give you a heart in return. Comments are incredibly important and help the video a lot, so don't forget to leave yours. Welcome back to Angel Engine. Oh, hold on, I've got something cool to share. A friend of mine just started a new channel where he'll be creating his own analog horror. And guess what? His very first video is a reinterpretation of the beginning of Angel Engine. I'm sure you'll love it, so check it out and show him some love. Link in the description. Now then, let's begin. The first thing we see this time is a new issue of Rewired Magazine, published shortly after the events we witnessed in the previous video. Its main focus? Covering the final moments we saw unfold last time. On the cover, we find a picture of Dr. Ernstmann, dressed in formal attire, a single angelic wing unfurled behind him, and wrapped in an aura that feels more like that of a corpse than a reborn genius. Just below the title, a question demands our attention. Reforged or ruined, the prodigal son returns. On May 6, 2033, over a month after being officially declared dead in the wake of the Jensen Goldstein attack, Dr. Jeff Ernstmann made his return to the world. And he didn't come alone. At his side stood his most ambitious creation, Barakiel, the artificial angel, his most twisted legacy. As we explained in the previous video, the name Barakiel comes from Hebrew and means blessed by God. But let's not be fooled. There's no blessing in its purpose, in its existence, or in its appearance. This being carries no divinity, only a distorted reflection of it. And so, Ernstmann returned to the world that had already buried him. He stepped back into the spotlight, and as expected, the questions came quickly. In his first public appearance since his so-called resurrection, the Doctor appeared on The Barry Donovan Show. His goal was clear, to reclaim the narrative and tighten his grip on public opinion. But what followed revealed something unexpected. His old friend, the show's host, opened with what seemed like an innocent question. How was it, being dead? And in that moment, something broke. The composed image Ernstmann had carefully maintained began to crumble. He lashed out at the host. He yelled at him, insulted him, humiliated him, and when he realized the cameras were still rolling, he snapped. He ordered the broadcast to be cut, but no one listened. So he gave the order. Barakiel destroyed the cameras and the program came to an abrupt end. Every recording of the incident vanished, wiped from the internet, erased from history. As we mentioned in the previous video, this behavior doesn't align with what we've seen from the Antichrist, that cold, strategic figure who has guided every step toward humanity's downfall from the shadows. This was something else. Rage, loss of control, pain. It suggests that perhaps he hasn't been fully possessed. His soul may no longer be his own, that much is clear, but the mind of the brilliant, deranged scientist we once knew might still be in there. and in certain moments, it acts as an extension of this malevolent entity. After the televised collapse of the interview, there was absolute silence. Dr. Ernstmann offered no statement, not a single word to explain what had happened. No apology, no reflection, but someone else did speak. Stephen Eckelblum, his right-hand man and chief spokesperson of the Second Tower of Babel, issued an official statement. His tone, polished, careful, almost paternal. But beneath that calm exterior lies something more calculated. The need to preserve an illusion, to convince the world that everything is still under control. Eckelblum described Dr. Jeff Ernstmann's actions as unacceptable. He expressed regret to those who witnessed the broadcast. He spoke of stress, of trauma, of a brilliant mind pushed to its limits after surviving an assassination attempt. He portrayed Ernstmann as yet another victim of a cruel and unforgiving world. And then he asked for patience, reassuring us that they're working with him so that he can recover. Finally, like a seed of doubt planted with surgical precision, the magazine closes with a question that sets the tone for this new stage. Is he who returned still the same brilliant scientist, or is what remains a mere shell of his former self? Some people are beginning to suspect the truth. The reality is, a part of Ernstmann has died. What now walks the earth with his face is still him, but at the same time, it's something entirely different. What we're about to witness is, without a doubt, one of the most cryptic and unsettling episodes in the entire series, so brace yourself. It all begins with a hypnotic, unrelenting chant, a phrase that repeats like a sentence. In fact, you're hearing it right now. Babylon has fallen. This isn't just any message. It's a direct biblical quote from the book of Revelation. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils and the hold of every foul spirit. Many of you have probably figured out where this is going. In Christian tradition, Babylon represents any civilization that has betrayed God, an empire of corruption, of idolatry, of sin. But here, Babylon isn't a place. It's an idea, a global system, a world order steeped in excess, rotting from within, and hostile to the Almighty. Babylon is structural evil, it's moral decay, it's spiritual rebellion against the divine. When we hear that Babylon has fallen, in this context, it doesn't mean a city has crumbled. It means the collapse of this entire profane world. A world built on the suffering of an angel, a world that willfully turned its back on God, lured by the promise of artificial miracles. This world, in all its arrogance, is doomed to fall. That's something we've known since the very first episodes. A world driven by constant progress, destined, sooner or later, to become a desolate wasteland. And now the phrase Babylon has fallen simply confirms it. The first figure we see might look familiar. It's the reporter who, in the early episodes, covered the progress of the Angel Engine from outside the Second Tower of Babel. But that man is gone. His expression is hollow, his words chilling. He pleads with Ernstmann to join them in paradise. We don't know exactly what he means by paradise, but what we do know for sure is the state this poor man is in. He's in a state eerily similar to Ernstmann after his death, under the control and influence of a being of pure evil. Throughout the series, we've seen the Antichrist take on many forms to deceive us and push his plan forward. But everything suggests that this towering, emaciated figure with a gaping hole for a face and eyes scattered across its flesh is his true form. We don't see him like that in this scene, at least, not exactly. But it's clear that the very world this poor soul now inhabits is the Antichrist, a never-ending landscape of living, pulsing flesh, covered in eyes and mouths, a terrain that breathes, watches, and feeds. Moments later, the reporter's face begins to open, and what's inside? Well, we all know exactly who it is. But what does this mean? How did this person end up in such a horrific state? Are we supposed to understand that at some point this reporter was used as a vessel for the Antichrist? It's not an unreasonable theory, especially considering we saw him appear mid-broadcast. One question after another, and no clear answers. Then we shift to a scene entirely in black and white. In a desolate landscape, a massive tower stands tall. People wander around it, aimless, until they begin to vanish. And once no one is left, the tower begins to change. Its shape shifts, evolves, until it becomes something we've seen before. the second Tower of Babel. Next, we see Ernstmann standing in darkness, and behind him, white figures begin to manifest, strewn across the ground. So, how are we supposed to make sense of all this without losing our minds? The truth is, it's not easy. First, we see a group of people gathered around a colossal structure, a dark monolith rising out of nothingness. Could this be the construction of the original Tower of Babel? At first glance, maybe. The people around it could represent its builders, and their gradual disappearance could symbolize the moment God scattered them by confusing their languages, leaving the tower unfinished. But there's a problem. Right after they vanish, a new tower rises from the exact same spot, the one that houses the Angel Engine. But that doesn't make sense. They weren't built in the same place. Still, the way these scenes unfold leads us to a single conclusion. Those white figures behind Ernstmann are corpses, and that opens two possible interpretations. Maybe this is a literal representation of the cost of building the second tower. Human sacrifices, lives offered one by one so the tower could rise. The brief flash of what appears to be the Antichrist's face between the two scenes might be a clue. It could be suggesting that beyond being the mind behind the Angel Engine, he also played a crucial role in the tower's construction. And for reasons still unknown, innocent lives had to be sacrificed for its rise. The second possibility is simpler. Perhaps those corpses are nothing more than victims of Ernstmann himself, human test subjects, a visual representation of all who died in the name of progress. As you can see, nothing is truly clear. Honestly, sometimes I wish Angel Engine were just a little less cryptic, but I suppose that's part of what makes it so fascinating. In any case, whatever the correct interpretation may be, one thing is certain. Nothing in this world has ever been built without pain, despair, and death. Then, the episode brings us into a much more intimate space, where two figures, once allies, now stand face to face, Stephen Eckelblum and the new Ernstmann. This probably happens not long after the incident on The Barry Donovan Show. Eckelblum tries to reach out, speaking with a tone that suggests genuine concern. He asks Ernstmann to let him in, to open his mind, to allow anyone to help him. But Ernstmann refuses. Not because he doesn't want help, but because he's no longer capable of receiving it. He tells Eckelblum he doesn't understand the magnitude of the situation. He reminds him that he can't save anyone, not even himself. It's his way of saying the damage is done, that the wound that killed him and brought him back is no longer physical. It's spiritual, and it's spreading like a disease. He knows that eternal rest has been stolen from him, and he knows the world, as we know it, is about to collapse. The fall of civilization is inevitable. Babylon has fallen, and just then his words are interrupted by an emergency alert, the very same one that introduced the president's speech. If there was still any doubt, this confirms it. This war is what will drag humanity into ruin. The chanting stops, and with it, everything shifts. We are thrown into the future. A desolate, scorched, silent world. A post-apocalyptic wasteland. And here, the three most important figures of this entire story appear once again. Uriel, Barakiel, and the Antichrist. Each one of them utters a single sentence, a line that, though brief, carries enormous weight, because all of them come from the same place, chapter 31 of the book of Jeremiah. The first voice we hear is Uriel's, still trapped inside the Angel Engine.
A voice was heard in Ramah. Do not listen.
The original line, except for the final warning, comes directly from Jeremiah 31:15. In its biblical context, Ramah was a city north of Jerusalem. There, Rachel, the symbolic mother of Israel's tribes, cries out in anguish for her children, who were taken from their land and cast into exile. But Uriel adds something not found in the original passage: do not listen. And judging by what we'll see next, we can interpret this as a warning, one aimed at someone in particular, because what's being heard is not real grief. It's a trap, a carefully crafted manipulation. As Uriel speaks, we're shown two scenes. In the first, we see what appears to be Uriel outside the Angel Engine, but that's impossible. Later in the timeline, he appears even more deteriorated, still trapped. So what does this scene actually mean? Then, the figure you're seeing now appears on screen. In my opinion, this particular moment is especially revealing. The next voice we hear is Barakiel's, who continues the biblical passage.
Lamentation and bitter weeping, Rachel weeping for her children.
Rachel's weeping symbolizes the grief of a mother mourning a loss that can't be undone, but spoken by a creature born of suffering, the phrase turns into a cruel mockery. And then the third arrives, the Antichrist, once again taking on Uriel's form.
Refused to be comforted for her children because
Then the three voices come together to deliver the final sentence.
They were
no
more.
In the Bible, these words were used by the gospel writer Matthew to describe the massacre of the innocents, the brutal slaughter of every male infant ordered by King Herod in a desperate attempt to eliminate the Messiah. In this context, Rachel is seen as the mother of Israel crying from her grave for her murdered children, the embodiment of maternal sorrow, the purest form of grief imaginable. But as you already know, in this series, everything has a purpose, and this is no exception. Here, these biblical lines might not refer to a specific mother or a group of children. They might be an analogy for all of humanity, because just like Rachel's children, humanity is all but gone. Finally, we reach the final scene, one that, without exaggeration, could decide the fate of this entire story. Standing before us is the so-called hero, the last hope, the only character still untouched by corruption, the last human being who might still be able to change everything. And in front of him, Uriel, trapped inside the angel engine, crucified by wires, surrounded by screens, his eyes filled with despair, pleading, begging for someone to end his torment. But as we already know, that's not Uriel. Those words the archangel spoke earlier now make perfect sense. He was trying to warn the hero, warning him about a voice that sounds like his, a voice that seems gentle, even desperate, but is anything but. Uriel knows the Antichrist is imitating him. He knows it's a trap, and he knows exactly who that trap is meant for. And so, the warning becomes painfully clear. There is a voice you will hear, but don't listen to it. Don't answer that call. Don't go near that place. But his words never reached him. It's very possible that the Antichrist, sensing the hero's potential to change everything, diverted his path. He pulled him toward himself, using a voice identical to Uriel's, but stronger, much, much stronger. And the poor boy fell right into the trap. He hears the voice pleading, asking for help, begging for mercy, but that figure before him is guiding him straight into damnation. The deceiver even mimics being trapped, just like Uriel. Our last hope doesn't know that what he's looking at is not an angel. And if he takes one step closer, who knows what might happen? Well, that's my interpretation. I'd be lying if I said this wasn't the hardest part of the whole video to figure out. Anyway, as always, let me know what you think in the comments. The next episode opens with a close-up of a machine, some kind of robot, or rather, a mechanical body still in the middle of assembly. As the camera slowly pulls back, an off-screen voice asks it a simple question. On a scale from 1 to 10, how strong is the pain you're feeling? The automaton gives the highest answer possible, 10. And yet, I'm convinced the pain it feels goes far beyond that limit. From this very first scene, we can already draw an important conclusion. What we're looking at is clearly a new creation of the second Tower of Babel, a being born of suffering just like Barakiel, but with one crucial difference. This time, the pain isn't external. It's not imposed from the outside. It comes from within. And if that's the case, if these machines can actually feel pain, then they must contain a biological component, which raises some deeply disturbing questions. Who was this thing before it became a sobbing mess of wires and metal? Could it be that all those so-called volunteers who took part in the grotesque experiments of the Angel Engine Initiative were turned into these things? Capturing an angel and using its power to create artificial miracles wasn't enough. Creating an artificial angel from the first one wasn't enough either. It never is with these people. Suddenly, the camera pulls back further, revealing who's overseeing the entire process. Louis Marquez, one of Dr. Ernstmann's former colleagues. He was one of the few who publicly defended Ernstmann during the riots following his death. That was the first time we heard his name. And it's in that moment, in that very frame, that we find a massive piece of foreshadowing hiding in plain sight. Prototypes of these new biomechanical machines, shown 7 episodes before their official debut. The scene cuts to a live broadcast on national news. On screen, we see 3 figures: the reporter, Russle, Stephen Eichelblum, and one of these machines, or more accurately, one of these abominations. Russle greets the audience with excitement and cheerfully introduces the invention. He describes it as soldiers of steel powered by the energy of the Angel engine. In other words, living weapons powered by divine energy, autonomous extensions of the celestial machine, the Angel Core. Even after the creation of Barakiel, they're still using Uriel. The claim that the Angel would no longer be necessary was just another lie, which leaves us with an unsettling question. What was the true purpose behind creating this artificial angel? According to Eichelblum, the second Tower of Babel is working tirelessly to build a world without problems, one without suffering, where humanity can live in peace. But he admits there's a limitation. The world is just too large, too full of conflict, too chaotic for a single machine, the Angel engine, to fix everything. That's where the Angel Core come in. He explains that they're meant to be portable versions of the Angel engine. So, if the engine itself can't intervene directly, or if its activation would be too extreme for a particular case, these machines can act in its place. Eichelblum offers a moral justification, a noble vision, at least on the surface, but it's deeply manipulative, because if their primary function is to help humanity, why are they built like weapons? Why do they look like they were designed for war? During the interview, the biomechanical soldier mutters something, barely audible. It asks for help. A short, desperate plea. The reporter doesn't seem to notice, and Eichelblum completely ignores it. Then, without warning, the automaton slowly raises its arm and places a hand on Russell's shoulder. It's a subtle gesture, but one that immediately triggers discomfort and tension in the reporter. Eichelblum, however, responds with unnerving calm. He tells Russell not to worry, that everything's under control. As Eichelblum continues praising the wonders of these machines, the automaton begins secreting a strange substance, a bright, green, viscous fluid that quickly spreads across Russell's body. But it doesn't just cover him, it eats through him. It dissolves his skin, his muscles, everything. Russell screams in agony until the healthy, energetic man he once was is reduced to a charred skeleton, live on air, while no one can do anything to stop it. For the first time, Eichelblum loses his composure. He panics, shouting for the broadcast to be cut, and just like that, the signal cuts, and the episode ends. Now we know exactly what that thing was in the previous episode. And here's where things get really interesting. Remember how I said this scene was especially revealing? From what we've seen, it's clear the Angel Cores are unstable. Is it just me, or is this headed straight for disaster? What happens if these soldiers begin mass production? And let's be honest, the term soldiers isn't a coincidence. So here's my question. What if the great war the US is destined to fight isn't against another nation? Let's not forget, in his speech, the president never refers to the enemy as human. He never says who they are. He only mentions a threat that demands a total response. So, what if the war isn't against a country, but against the Angel Core, steel super soldiers, powered by the Angel engine, and completely out of control? This scene is so revealing because, at least in my opinion, it shows one of those machines creeping silently into someone's house. If that turns out to be true, then we'd have to revise one of our key assumptions, because that would mean the Antichrist hasn't fully manipulated the US president, at least not in every aspect. But even so, everything is still under the deceiver's control. After all, let's be honest, he has the most to gain from these soldiers losing control. Crazy theory? Absolutely, but at this point, totally plausible. 1 week after the incident, national news airs a new report, but this time the focus isn't on the second Tower of Babel or the latest developments of the Angel engine, it's on its direct consequences. More specifically, on the first officially confirmed death caused by Angel engine technology, Russell Westbrook. The broadcast quickly shifts to the main news anchor, Hunter Terry Abacus, who, wearing a somber expression, delivers breaking news about the chaos that erupted during the recent G20 summit held in Rome. For those unfamiliar, the G20 is the most important economic and political forum on the planet. It's made up of the world's 19 largest economies, plus the European Union. And as a headline in the previous episode already hinted, the central topic of this year's summit is none other than the regulation and control of the Angel engine. Terry explains that tensions inside the venue have reached critical levels. According to initial reports, several world leaders even got into a physical altercation during one of the panels. The reason? A debate over who should be granted authority over the Angel engine. The transmission then shifts to Rome, where field reporter Tina Clark speaks to us live from the scene. She confirms that the details surrounding the incident are still murky, but according to sources, up to 7 heads of state may have been involved in the fight. The situation is as tense as it is volatile. Behind her, thousands have gathered in protest. This isn't just a demonstration against the Angel engine. It's a collective outcry demanding justice. Justice for Russle. His death has become the spark that ignited this wave of mass unrest. The hashtag Justice for Russle has already surpassed 20 million posts in just a few days. 20 million may sound like a lot, but in truth, it's just a loud minority, one that still pales in comparison to the overwhelming number of people who continue to support the project. As Tina continues her coverage, new footage appears on screen. What we feared the most is now happening. The Angel Corps are being mass-produced. By now, even keeping track of their numbers feels impossible. And as if that weren't enough, an entire unit of Angel Corps has been deployed as a security force at the summit. Yes, you heard that right. Despite the fact that one of these soldiers killed a journalist on live television just days ago, the host country, Italy, has chosen to use them to protect world leaders. Naturally, that decision has only added fuel to the fire. Still, despite the crowd's intensity and the anger hanging in the air, the deployed units remain calm. They speak gently to the protesters, they show empathy, they ask people to step back, peacefully, and that isn't entirely surprising. While we know they can lose control, we mustn't forget where their energy comes from. They're powered by Uriel, so it wouldn't be unreasonable to think that some trace of his essence still lingers inside them. But their words fall on deaf ears, and then it happens. From within the sea of people, a man starts moving toward the security perimeter. We see him clearly. He's alone, determined, and carrying a suspicious-looking bag in his hand. One of the automatons spots him. It pleads with him not to go through with it, but it's too late. Panic erupts, and the transmission cuts to black.
Please get back.
Don't do it.
The next episode begins in a truly shocking way. Standing before us is Uriel, in the exact same state we saw Dr. Ernstmann after his death, fully under the control and absolute dominance of the Antichrist. A soul completely condemned. At first glance, it seems this malevolent being has done the same thing to Uriel, but for the sake of my own sanity, I want to believe this scene isn't meant to be taken literally, but symbolically, a visual representation of the current imbalance. Uriel is now completely overwhelmed. The Antichrist has surpassed him in power, influence, presence, and authority. For the most part, humanity has stopped listening to its angel. Because if I have to start theorizing that Uriel has been corrupted by the Antichrist, or worse, that he was never the benevolent celestial being we thought he was, honestly, my brain would explode. Not just because it would shatter everything we've established so far, but because it would take me an eternity to reorganize all the lore and piece it back together. And honestly, I find that extremely unlikely. So, at least for now, let's leave it at that. What follows takes us back in time. We see Uriel at the very moment he first descended from the heavens. His appearance is flawless, his face is calm, his voice gentle, and with open arms, he speaks to humanity with a clear and powerful message.
Be not afraid. I have come to help you. You are the salt of the earth.
These words are a direct echo of the gospel according to St. Matthew in the New Testament. Christ, during his Sermon on the Mount, addresses his disciples to remind them of their spiritual worth. You are the salt of the earth is a metaphor meant to highlight those who preserve faith, goodness, and truth. But then the tone changes, drastically. Uriel's voice becomes distorted, deeper, fractured, and what follows is no longer a message of hope. A rapid-fire sequence begins, showing us, one after another, the countless horrors that have twisted this world into what it has become. And over those images, Uriel continues.
But if salt has lost its taste, again.
The full biblical passage reads as follows: "You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything, except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot." Here, Jesus tells his followers they have a vital role to play in the world, just as salt was incredibly valuable in ancient times. But if they lose their essence, they also lose their purpose. They will become useless and will be cast out, trampled by the very world they were once called to illuminate. So, what is Uriel trying to tell us with this final part? The answer is simple. It's a direct warning. Humanity, once meant to preserve goodness, has lost its purpose, and now, only its fall remains. We're now taken back to the Angel Engine Chamber, where Dr. Ernstmann is locked in a tense argument with Stephen Eichelblum. Eichelblum tries to keep his composure, but Ernstmann is furious, exhausted. He refuses to keep taking part in the ongoing ad campaigns. I hadn't mentioned it before because it didn't seem all that relevant, but apparently, the Block Blast ads are canon, somehow. The argument quickly escalates, words grow sharper, and just when it seems like they might come to blows, a voice cuts through the chaos. It's Uriel, once again pleading for help. But before he can even finish his sentence, Eichelblum yells at him to be quiet, and the scene cuts out abruptly. Then we shift to a completely different setting, a sort of podcast or radio show. A man, whose identity remains unknown for now, speaks with clear concern about everything. He claims to have access to confidential information. He says he's heard rumors of disappearances, of inhuman experiments, but above all, he is convinced of one thing. He believes that the being locked inside the tower isn't an angel, but the Antichrist himself. The truth is, he's not entirely wrong. His suspicions are valid. They're just aimed at the wrong target. The same man shows up later on The Barry Donovan Show, where his identity is finally revealed. He's introduced as Jamie Dubois, founder of the resistance movement known as the Yellow Coats, a group that has grown rapidly in size and is now publicly challenging the Second Tower of Babel. However, before Jamie enters the scene, the Antichrist appears. He watches silently. He listens to every word Barry Donovan says, and vanishes the moment Jamie walks in. Barry introduces him as a controversial figure and brings up the accusations that his movement supports Jensen Goldstein, but Jamie doesn't flinch. He openly states that he sees Jensen as a hero, a man who gave his life in service to humanity. When Jason Goldstein carried out the assassination, he was wearing a yellow coat, and that small detail became the symbol and the name of the resistance movement that emerged after his death. The program is suddenly cut off. National news breaks in with an urgent bulletin. Dr. Jeff Ernstmann has gone missing. There have been no signs of him since July 1st. Every attempt to locate him has failed, and authorities are now asking the public for help. Sure enough, if you go to the official website, you'll find an entire section dedicated to the search. There's even a submission form where people can share any information that might help locate him. But that's not all. If you dig a little deeper, you'll come across a strange poem titled, "Woe to You." As I escape this frame of dust and clay, woe to you. As my wings take shape, and I fleet on high, woe to you. As your spear is driven through my translucent shape, woe to you. As I lie splayed beyond the carcass of a fleeting cosmos, woe to you. As my final breath fades into the great beyond, woe to you, O hateful world. This seems to be the final lament of a broken being, a creature that was betrayed, one that tried to fly, tried to escape its prison, but was struck down by the spear of man. It dies with eyes wide open, staring into a rotten cosmos, and as it fades away, it curses the entire world. Everything suggests that these words were written by Uriel himself, a cry of anguish from the archangel. It could be interpreted as his final thought before being locked inside the angel engine. The tone of sorrow, betrayal, and detachment from the physical world fits his situation perfectly. As always, what do you think? And about that picture of Ernstmann, there's really not much to say. It's just a wolf in sheep's clothing. The second to last episode of today's video starts in a way that already feels familiar. Uriel speaks to us from the future once again, giving us new instructions. He tells us how to survive. From no one. Something's clearly off. You could take it as a warning about a threat not yet revealed, or not yet perceived as such. That would explain the strange use of the word no one. But there's another suspicious detail. Just as Uriel is about to reveal who or what we're supposed to survive, His voice glitches, distorts, and all he manages to say is "no one," as if something or someone intervened in that exact moment to silence him. Unsettling, to say the least.
How to survive? No. One step. One. When they come, be not afraid.
When you combine this line with the images that accompany it, Uriel's warning becomes unmistakable. He's talking about the Angel Corps. We see an endless army of biomechanical soldiers marching in perfect unison. Visually, it mirrors the earliest episodes of the series, where we saw human troops heading into war. The parallel is undeniable, and it strongly reinforces the theory we've discussed before. However, according to the latest issue of Rewired Magazine, as well as the speech we'll soon hear from Stephen Eichelblum, the Angel Corps are actively involved in the search for Ernstmann. They've been granted full clearance to enter any location, including private property. In other words, they can legally enter your home. That context helps clarify these scenes. And yet, even with all that in mind, I can't shake the feeling that something is going to spiral out of control. After all, Uriel is warning us about them.
Step 2. Equip the full armor of the Lord.
Here we see a familiar figure, a member of the Yellowcoats who bears a striking resemblance to Jamie Dubois. Given his growing role in the story, it's safe to assume it's him. We watch as he puts on a suit of armor, the full armor of the Lord, a gesture that symbolizes something simple, yet powerful. When faced with the advance of these machines, the only true protection left is faith. It's a direct biblical reference to the book of Ephesians, where believers are instructed to wear the full armor of God, to stand firm against the forces of evil. That says it all.
Step 3. Do not believe their threats. Whoever drinks of his water will thirst no longer. Whatever you do not wear his mark. Be strong. They can only harm your flesh.
Let's break it down. The first phrase, "do not believe their threats," is a warning against fear-based control. It's referring to some external force attempting to dominate people through intimidation. The message is simple: don't believe them, don't give in, don't fall for their rhetoric of fear. This is a declaration of spiritual autonomy. Whoever drinks of his water will thirst no longer. This line directly echoes Jesus' words to the Samaritan woman in the Gospel of John. He tells her that those who drink the water he gives will never thirst again, because that water becomes a wellspring of eternal life within their soul. Then we hear, "Whatever you do not wear his mark." This is a clear reference to the mark of the beast from the book of Revelation. That mark represents allegiance to a corrupt, blasphemous system, often interpreted as being led by the Antichrist. Rejecting it means rejecting submission. Wearing it isn't just a symbol, it's a spiritual act of surrender, a declaration of obedience to a force that stands in direct opposition to God. Uriel's plea here is urgent. Don't give in, not even if everyone around you does, not even if it seems necessary for survival, not even if it looks harmless or convenient, because accepting that mark means more than just giving in. It means choosing temporary comfort in exchange for eternal ruin. And finally, be strong. They can only harm your flesh. This is a reminder that the only thing they can touch is your body, your physical life. But your soul, your true self, is beyond their reach. It doesn't belong to them. Taken as a whole, these words form a spiritual manifesto, the kind of message you might find scrawled on a wall in a world ruled by a false god or a blasphemous order. It's a voice crying out from inside the machine, reminding the few who still hold on to their faith that pain is real, but temporary. He is living proof that physical pain isn't the worst thing that can happen to you. The real horror is spiritual corruption, because the Antichrist and his allies may take everything from you, but they can't touch your soul unless you willingly hand it over. The camera slowly begins to pull away from Uriel's face, and then we see it. Someone has managed to reach the very heart of the second tower of Babel. That person appears to be Jamie. The scene cuts, and an official announcement from the tower takes over the screen. Stephen Eckelblum appears, and with a solemn tone and serious expression, he announces the launch of a new international search and rescue campaign to locate Jeff Ernstmann.
The following is a public service announcement brought to you by the Second Tower of Babel. In collaboration with numerous government agencies, the Second Tower of Babel will be launching a never-before-seen search and rescue effort aimed at locating Dr. Jeff Ernstmann. We intend to search every last crevice on planet Earth until we have located Dr. Ernstmann. This will include a search of any private or public space, carried out by our very own Angel Corps. If you see us coming, please be not afraid and cooperate as best as possible. We only aim to instill order in this chaotic world.
At the end, Eckelblum's face begins to shift, and we all know what that means. We then return to Rewired Magazine. This time, it focuses almost entirely on expanding the details surrounding the international search operation for Dr. Jeff Ernstmann. The operation has been named John's Vision, a direct reference to the Apostle John and his book of Revelation. First, the magazine informs us that the Second Tower has launched a global search operation to locate the missing doctor. This effort is being carried out in collaboration with numerous international government agencies. The announcement is made publicly by Stephen Eckelblum. The most unsettling part of his statement is the scope. They plan to search every corner of the globe, including, as we've already heard, both public and private spaces. This unprecedented level of surveillance and intrusion is beginning to spark public outrage. The search campaign is generating extreme political tensions and a growing sense of global uncertainty. All eyes are now on Beersheba, home to the Second Tower of Babel and the epicenter of every major decision. The final page presents a direct response from the resistance. In a now-deleted post, the founder of the world's largest anti-Angel Engine movement issued a scathing critique of the search and rescue initiative. "Do not let them in. This is the beginning of the end." Those were his exact words. Ironically, the deletion only made the post go viral. Many saw it as a clear act of censorship by the authorities, further fueling the unrest. Critics, on the other hand, accused him of inciting disorder. Meanwhile, society continues to fracture. Reports of violence begin to surface, confrontations between civilians and the Angel Corps, attempts to block home inspections. That's where the magazine ends. But the most shocking detail is actually on the cover. Among a group of yellowcoats stands a blurry figure. The face is distorted, but you'd have to be blind not to recognize him. So what does it mean? Has he joined the movement? Could the yellowcoats be involved in his disappearance? All these questions, for now, remain unanswered, sunk in darkness, waiting to be brought to light. Because this final episode takes us straight to the point of no return. The peak of the series. Humanity came dangerously close to extinction, but it was granted a second chance, a chance it chose to waste. Welcome to the end of the world.
I know where he is.
As we speak, our enemies are readying their nuclear arsenal.
Do you think he was happy?
What do you mean?
Up on that cross.
And do you have any women on your team?
No.
Excuse me, I have an important meeting to attend.
What about you? Rest assured, we will locate Dr. Ernstmann.
Would you be happy? In that moment, he accomplished everything he set out to do. What greater joy could there be?
I will always love you.
The episode opens with Barakiel, this time looking far more disturbing. Torn flesh, blood-filled eyes, teeth sharp as blades, and a smile that radiates a perverse kind of pleasure. As we look at him, he turns to the audience and makes a chilling statement. No names are given, but considering everything we've seen, there's no doubt. Then a countdown appears on screen. 10 minutes. 10 minutes until the end of days. Each second ticking away like a final heartbeat, an unstoppable march toward total annihilation. We return to a familiar place, the Oval Office. We've seen this moment before at the very start of the series, but this time there's a crucial difference. Back then, we believed the Antichrist was the one controlling the President of the United States, but now we see Barakiel standing behind him, and that's strange, because we're witnessing the exact same moment. There's really only one explanation that makes sense. Maybe the figure we saw at the beginning of the series was Barakiel all along. It's just that the creator hadn't fully settled on his design at the time, and ended up updating it later to the version we now recognize. If that's the case, it's a clear continuity issue, one that could easily confuse viewers and make them think they're looking at two entirely different characters. Still, if Barakiel isn't the great deceiver, how is he controlling the President of the United States? Barakiel may just be another puppet, another extension of his will. As the countdown continues, we descend into the depths of the second Tower of Babel. There, Ernstman and Eckelblum share one final conversation. What's interesting about this scene is that it shows Ernstman's return after his disappearance. We don't know how or why he's back, or what really happened during the time he was gone. Unless, of course, he never actually vanished, and the whole thing was just part of a strategy for some unknown reason. We simply don't know. In their exchange, Ernstman seems broken, introspective, and defeated. He wonders aloud whether the one who died on the cross, clearly referring to Jesus Christ, was happy in his final moments, a question that reflects the weight of his own guilt. We then return to the Oval Office. This time, the president is surrounded by men in white robes. The atmosphere is undeniably cult-like. This is, without a doubt, the most mysterious part of the episode. We don't know who these people are. We don't know why they're with the president, and we definitely don't know why he asks one of them if there are any women in their group. Or maybe we do. The fact that he asks this question right before the end of the world might reveal his true concern, the preservation of the human species after the apocalypse. Next, we move to a public address. Eckelblum stands before a crowd, stating that they're doing everything they can to find Ernstman, but shortly after, we return to his private conversation with the doctor. This time, it's Eckelblum who turns the question around. Ernstman doesn't hesitate. He says that fulfilling his purpose would be enough. He sees himself as a messianic figure. Just like Christ, he believes he's carrying out a divine plan of salvation. But we know the truth. His plan has only brought pain, death, and chaos. And still, he sees no contradiction. To him, the end justifies everything. Then the president, still under Barakiel's control, repeats a line we all know by now: "The sky will burn." At that exact moment, nuclear sirens start blaring around the world. We're not shown how the conflict begins or how it unfolds. What we do see is the final weapon. From a blood-red sky, a plane descends. The final judgment falls, a nuclear bomb with unprecedented destructive power. In the final seconds before impact, Uriel appears one last time. Despite everything, he reminds us that he will always love us. And then, in the blink of an eye, everything is gone. The earth is consumed by fire. At ground zero, nothing remains. Everything is vaporized. And what's left of the world is nothing but ruins. But the story doesn't end here. From now on, we'll follow the hero, a lone boy wandering through the ruins of civilization. Our final hope. We also know there are pieces of the past we haven't seen yet. Moments that came before the apocalypse. Moments that still need to be told. But all of that will have to wait. This video has come to an end. So, what did you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I love reading them. If you want more videos like this, don't forget to support this one as much as possible and share it with as many people as you can. Also, make sure to follow me on my other social media platforms, where I post exclusive content you won't find here on YouTube. And most importantly, a massive shout out to the channel members. Seriously, thank you all so much. If you'd like to become a member, just click the join button next to the subscribe button to unlock tons of perks and exclusive emojis while supporting me. If you're interested, join in. I'll be forever grateful. And remember, this video was made by a cat, and cats can't talk. Thanks for watching. Take care and see you soon.